My name is Timbani Threadgill, and this is Timbo Talk. Before we get started on this episode, I'd just like to take a minute to do a little housekeeping, to thank you guys for your time in listening to the pod, all the positive feedback that you have shared, to the people that have been sharing the pod. Huge shout out. I appreciate it. I looked at some analytics and I had a listener in Sierra Leone. I do not know anybody in Sierra Leone. So whoever shared the pod with somebody in Sierra Leone, that's pretty awesome. I appreciate that. Please keep sharing the pod if you think it's dope. Please like, share, and subscribe. And most importantly, please go follow the Timbo Talk Pod Instagram page. We are found on Instagram at Timbo Talk Pod, P-O-D. You'll see the logo of the show on the page. It's open. Give us a follow. And DMs are open as well, always. So we'd love to have interactions with listeners. And it's really important for the upcoming Ask Timbo episodes to have some feedback from you guys, specifically on, obviously, questions that you want answered. I'd also like to get more feedback from listeners on topics that you would like to be explored or that you think would be good episodes. I don't know that I'll answer every question. I don't know that I'll be able to do, every episode idea that is presented, but I welcome that feedback. I would really like this to be, in as many ways as possible, a listener driven podcast. And I'd like to do those episodes frequently. So, if we build up a community and there are questions that come in regularly and the Ask Timbo, the episodes are entertaining and fun and popular, then we'll bang out more of them. But in order to do that, I need to have interaction with y'all. Easiest way to do it, IG. So again, please give us a follow on Instagram. We're available at Timbo Talk Pod. You can also email asktimbothat@gmail.com if you have any questions or want to use that medium to get in touch with the show. So today's topic that we're going to be discussing is something that shows up in almost every part of our life. Relationships, work, family, even our own self-talk. And that's the difference between red flags and gut feelings. We're really going to dive into how we recognize them, why we sometimes ignore them, and what it means to really trust ourselves. So I want to take a minute to kind of define these concepts as we move through this conversation. So when I say red flags, we're talking about patterns, behaviors, signs, cues that signal potential harm, dysfunction, pretty much something that tells us something is amiss here, right? Some examples of red flags that we may see are frequent boundary crossings, or as my man Charlie Murphy liked to say, a habitual line stepper, controlling behavior, inconsistency, disrespect, gaslighting, things like that. So these are patterns, behaviors, cues, and signals to us of potential harm, dysfunction, that something is amiss. Now, when we talk about gut feelings, we are talking about your body's internal warning system. I like to say, my radar sort of going off, right? All that kind of stuff. So when you talk about gut feelings, it's your body's internal warning system. It's the feeling that something's off. I can't shake this feeling. I just don't feel right. I can feel it on my bones. I can feel it on my guts. This can look like anxiety, tightness in the chest, a general avoidance, like when you're supposed to be spending time with somebody or you're supposed to be around somebody and you get that general feeling like, I need to find a reason to get out of that, right? That avoidance. It could manifest as tension. It can manifest as confusion. It looks different for each of us, but it tends to look like those type of things, okay? Now, your gut is often your first truth teller. Before you have evidence to support your thoughts or feelings, long before you have proof in the pudding, okay, your gut is going to be the first truth teller, at least for most of us. Long before your mind finishes building the case, long before things are resolved, your gut is going to internally signal to you that there is a red flag here. And usually the more time you have to build that case, to spend time to get that proof in that pudding, is when the red flags will really start to emerge. The patterns, the behaviors. So they are related, but usually the gut feeling will come before the red flags become truly evident. My running saying, in my circles with my friends, I tell people, man, look, at this point in my life, I trust my gut feeling blindly. I'm sure there's been a couple of times where my gut feeling has been off, but at this point in my life, so be it. If my gut feeling is off, my gut feeling is off, because the majority of the time over my lifetime, my intuition and my gut have been correct. Okay. So let's take a little bit of time to talk specifically about why we ignore red flags. This is good. Get your notepads out, get your pens, pay attention. No, I'm just joking. But this is this is some good stuff. And I think it's important that we talk about it. I do plenty of ignoring the red flags myself, which maybe we'll dump into later, but whatever. Let's talk about some common reasons we overlook warning signs. This is a big one. Hope for change. Maybe it'll get better. That's a big reason why people tend to ignore red flags, okay? You can think about when you're kind of balancing the good of the bad, and there's so much good. I can change those things, right? Hope for change makes people ignore red flags. Fear of conflict or loss will also make us ignore red flags. If I bring this up, I might end the relationship. I might lose them, right? I might end up losing my job. Maybe my boss will get mad if I bring this up. That's a real thing. So fear of conflict, fear of loss, another reason why we ignore red flags. Doubting ourselves. This is a big one for many of us. Am I overreacting? What if my gut is wrong? What if I am misreading things? Okay, so you can doubt your gut. That can make you feel off, make you double clutch. Wonder if you're making the right or the wrong decision. We can also normalize dysfunction. So what may initially appear to us as a red flag now becomes something that is normal or regular. And as a result of that, we are now ignoring the red flag. That red flag has become par for the course. And I've run into this in many different kinds of relationships in my life, not just romantic, but professionally, with coworkers, with colleagues. Just a few quick examples of what normalizing dysfunction can look like when we initially look at red flags and then kind of let them linger. So in the workplace, imagine you have a lot of personal time off that you've saved up, and there's a big deadline going on at work, and you schedule a 3-day weekend to take your kids to the beach. And your boss is maybe frustrated, irritated, and brings you into the office and says, look, I know you have PTO, and I know you put that in 2 months ago, but that was before this deadline came out, and we really need you here. So you cancel the trip, and you end up working that Monday or that Friday, no longer having your 3-day weekend because of the circumstance, right? That might be something that is easy to normalize in that circumstance because the deadline came out, the circumstances changed, there was a 911 emergency type of situation. For me, that's a red flag because I would want my personal time off to be honored and respected by my boss. So that would be something that I would see as a red flag. Normalizing that red flag would be working in that same place and talking to your wife or your husband, and they're like, hey, when's the beach trip? When are we going to take some vacation? When are we going to get out of town for a couple days? And you're like, I know I have 168 hours of personal time off, but things in the office are just too busy. I just can't get away right now, honey. I just can't get away from the office. That would be normalizing dysfunction. That would be an example to me of normalizing dysfunction. Right? Because your personal time off should be honored and respected, even though in a lot of environments that we work in, it is not. Even though it's your PTO, you have to double check before you take it, all those kinds of things. So anyways, just an example of what that could look like. Okay. The big thing that I want to keep in mind when we talk about this is every time we override our gut, every time we ignore our gut feelings, okay, especially before the red flags have become completely evident, we teach ourselves to not trust our inner compass. And in the future, that is going to be problematic for us because we need to be in tune with our gut. We need to trust our gut. It's of the utmost importance, okay? So pay attention to that. Now, how do we recognize a gut feeling versus fear? Gut feelings are usually quiet, they're steady, and especially persistent. Okay, so if you get the heebie-jeebies the first time you hang out with somebody, maybe it's something you made for lunch. But if it's consistent, if it's steady, okay, that is something that we should pay attention to. Fear is often loud, it's anxious, it's urgent, like it's kind of like a fight or flight situation. Like when you're feeling fear, it feels more urgent. You need to do something about it, right? These gut feelings are usually a little more subtle, okay? Gut signals may feel uncomfortable, but kind of feel grounded. a good example is they kind of feel like a nudge. Fear tends to feel more panicky. It feels like we're, again, fight or flight. It's urgent. I got to do something. Like, I got to get out of here. A gut feeling is more like, I don't know if I like this. Maybe I should try and look for time to sneak on out. Okay? Now, some tips for telling the difference between, fear and gut signals. This is probably my favorite one. Sit with the feeling instead of reaction. Okay? It's important in a lot of things that we sit with things, that we really kind of explore them. So if you think you have a gut feeling on something, sit on it, analyze it, chew on it a little bit. The next time you're with that person, next time you're in that situation, whatever it may be, if you find yourself with that same feeling, that same kind of gut signal, that should be noteworthy to you. And one of the things that I like to do and to remember is to take internal notes. I had kind of like a little internal notebook, a quote unquote notebook that I like to use to keep things in mind, to remind myself of things and put things together when I kind of reflect back on multiple interactions or multiple visits to a specific environment or whatever it may be. Again, sit with the feelings, analyze them, chew on them, feel them out a little bit instead of immediately reacting. Okay? Ask yourself, what is this sensation trying to tell me? Why do I get the heebie-jeebies every time I'm around this person? Why do I feel uncomfortable every time I'm at this person's house? Whatever it may be, ask yourself, what is this sensation trying to tell me? Gut feelings often hold wisdom that can be explored and should not be dismissed. I'm not saying every time you get a gut feeling, you plant your flag and say this is how it is. But I am saying that we should, again, sit with it, chew on it, analyze it, ask ourselves, what is this trying to tell me? And explore that a little bit. Let's talk about how to rebuild self-trust. How to be in one with our gut. Now, these are some good tips that I want you guys to keep in mind when you're working on building self-trust, when you're working on, like I said, being in tune with your gut, paying attention to your gut feelings, trying to get better at this. Journaling patterns, okay? Track when you felt uneasy. Pay attention to these things, okay? Once you can pick up on a pattern, note it. What happened after that? What happened before this? Okay. What led to that feeling and what happened afterwards? I also, when I'm taking notes, I like to pay attention to as much as I can. So especially body language. So for example, if I think somebody's not being honest with me, right? I pay attention to their body language. I pay attention to their voice inflection. I pay attention to where their eyes are looking. I pay attention to all of these things, right? And I'm like, I feel like this person's lying to me right now. So I'll make an internal note of what that looked like. Right. So then in another conversation, I really shouldn't be sharing. This is all my game. I should be selling y'all this. Anyways. So then later on, I might have another interaction with that person where I know factually whether or not they're lying to me. Right. And I'll look and I'll pay attention to those same things. OK, so now they're being honest with me. Is their body language the same? Is their voice inflection the same? It may or may not be. But to me, it makes sense to pay attention to those things. On the other side of that coin, if I'm doing the same thing and I'm paying attention to voice inflection, body language, their eyes, and I know for certain that they're lying to me and they look exactly the same as when I initially thought they were lying to me about something different, I might be like, okay, now I feel even more confidently that this person was lying to me. Okay. Or that this person is in fact nervous around me or whatever it may be. Pay attention to these things. Take note of these things, rather. So patterns, journaling those patterns especially can be helpful. I also like to name needs and boundaries. Okay. So even if you don't act on them right away, you have to name your needs and boundaries. You have to identify for yourself personally what your needs are, what your boundaries are. So if something is giving you a weird gut feeling, if you think something is emerging as a red flag, pay attention to those things, name them out. Okay. And establish your boundaries. You can't be consistent with maintaining and establishing boundaries if you are not willing to put the fence up in the first place, right? To define what this is. I'm not going to put up with anybody who's going to disrespect me anymore. Okay. You're never going to get to a place where you're not allowing people to disrespect you if you don't start with establishing you're no longer okay with people disrespecting you. Practice speaking up in low-risk situations. This helps build confidence. So you might have a little bit of difficulty establishing a boundary or speaking up for yourself or calling somebody out on a red flag. But if you get more comfortable speaking up in low-risk situations, you'll build more confidence and you'll be more likely and can work towards speaking up for yourselves in a little bit of more high-risk situations, right? Where you might rock the boat a little bit, so to speak. Another part that's important in getting in tune with your gut and reestablishing and rebuilding trust with yourself is being around people who respect your no, who respect your voice. Don't be afraid to use phrases like, hey, you know what, that doesn't sit right with me. Or I'm not sure why, but I think I need a little space to think about this. This feels off. I need to pause. You are completely entitled to your feelings. They are your feelings alone. Okay? Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. You don't need to explain your gut to anyone. You just need to honor it. So if you feel unsafe, if you feel off, if something in your gut is throwing you off, use those phrases I talked about a second ago, okay? But get some space. Take some time. Think about these things. Call pause. That's totally okay. As we wind things down on this episode, I want to encourage you here. If you've ignored your gut before, welcome to being human. All right, as part of the human experience. This isn't about shame. It's about practice. Learning to listen again. You can begin anytime. You can begin right now if you want. Some of us have really struggled in this space, right? Red flags and gut feelings, whether that's in relationships, in the workplace, with our friends, as it relates to our sobriety, whatever it is. It's part of being human. And again, you can work on this. You can get better at this, but you got to start somewhere. I really encourage you to take some time to journal about this, especially if you think that you have some gut feelings about a specific person, a specific situation, a particular environment, or if you think some red flags are emerging. Journal on these things, okay? You can have some more generalized journaling prompts as well if you want to kind of work on this. Like, when was the last time I had a gut feeling and ignored it? What did I learn? What red flag do I now realize I saw, or maybe better phrase, felt in my gut early on, okay? So remember, it's not gas, it's not indigestion, it's not hunger pains because you're starving. It's your gut trying to tell you something, and pay attention to it. As usual, I'm most appreciative of you spending a little time with me today. This is Timbo Talk.